Hi, this is the order at evaluation for December the 10th, 2020. We've had 10 trades, 2 were buys and 8 were short sells. First trade was BAC, Bank of America Corporation. It tripped at 11:55.04 at a price of $28.70. It was a short sell. It closed at $29.11. It actually was up 1.08%. But you can see it's actually coming down this morning, so potentially is that if you didn't catch it by the end of the day, you may have been able to catch it early this morning. But we'll see if there's any point in time where it did come down below. Let's see, it tripped again at 11:55, so roughly around this time you see it tripped and it just shot up. And yeah, there was absolutely no recovery of it, so it basically went up and not recovered. And my guess is, yeah, LBD showing somewhat a positive movement. MACD actually showing pretty much negative negative pretty much, first part of the afternoon it was negative. So it was negative for a good part of the day. DI showing somewhat the same, bouncing back and forth a bit, but again it was very strong on negative. And Bollinger Band showing somewhat making a positive movement upwards. I can't consider this a positive movement. I can't consider it a possible movement. So it's negative. There basically is no potential opportunity with that stock, so it would have been a bad trade. Next trade is BOTZ. Global X Robotics and Artificial Intelligence, ETF. It tripped at 12 p.m. at a price of $32.08. It was a short sell. It closed at $32.15 and closed at its previous close, so basically synced with the previous day. And as you can see, it was up around that point, 32.10 there. Yeah, see, it basically went sideways for the rest of the day. Check the analysis to see if it indicates any kind of positive movement. OBD back and forth. MACD actually showing very much a positive movement for the day. DI actually showing a fairly good amount of negative movement, obviously. There's obviously a trip right around the time where it was moving negative across the board. It was very negative in the late morning. Bollinger Band moving sideways, coming up somewhat at the end of the day. It was making a reversal, but coming up, I'll consider that also a negative because there's just no absolute positive there. Like not really giving an indication that even the next day it would be down again. So excuse me. Next trade is BMY, Bristol Myers Squibb. It tripped at 12:10 p.m. at a price of $60.31. It was a short sell. It closed at $16.20, down 1.18%. You can see it's making recovery this morning, but it closed negative. So that's a positive. Our first positive for the day. And the analysis, somewhat showing negative on OBV. It was making recovery at the end of the day. MACD showing it was a good portion of the day down, but you can see the end of the day it was making recovery. DI showing the same thing. Bollinger Band showing coming down. So it was making a recovery, but you could have gotten out at the end of the day below its tripping price. Excuse me. Next trade is CNX Resources Corporation. It tripped at 12:45 p.m. at a price of $10.79. It was a buy trade. It closed at 11:10, up 12.12%. So that stock is actually doing very strong. So another positive trade. The analysis should show fairly positive movement based on the percent rise. OBV just moving up. MACD somewhat moving up. You can see there's a couple of periods where it was negative, but it was moving up a good portion of the day, and then the day was moving up. Bollinger Band right across the board, it's up. DI across the board is moving up, and Bollinger Band, just showing a steady rise. So that stock was moving up from early morning till well, all day actually. Next trade is AQB. That's Aqua Bounty Technologies. They tripped at 1:15:03 p.m. at a price of $6.94. It was a short sell. It closed at $7. It actually was down 19.26%. You can see it's making a bit of a recovery here early morning. A good recovery too. Let's see if there's any point. Look, it was moving heavily sideways just by price movement. So I don't know. 15. So roughly around this period. There was just no heavy movement, but it was moving sideways. It was moving sideways. OBV actually just showing it dropping. MACD morning dropping, but a good portion of the rest of the day it was actually moving up again, so it was recovering based on MACD. DI showing it was negative for morning a bit. Mid-afternoon, but positive the rest of the time. Bollinger Band just moving sideways. We can see also early morning it was making a heavy recovery, so technically I don't consider that a positive trade. I don't consider it possible just because of its strong movement early morning and the fact that the indication was just not showing that it was moving somewhat consistently downwards after it tripped. Next trade is AZN. AstraZeneca. It tripped at 1:45:39 p.m. at a price of $53.84. It was a short sell. It closed at $53.89. It was down 0.28%, but you can see it's actually closing below its tripping price early morning, so it's actually moving down still. And 145, which was roughly around this period, so we can see it down there. Well, not extensive and not high downward trend there. It was a good portion, at least an hour of time where it was down below its tripping price. So I'm going to consider that a positive, just because there was a point in time and the fact that it actually was opening this morning down also, so it would have been a positive day after. But let's just check to see if the price, indication is showing that. OBV pretty much showing a downwards direction. MACD surprisingly is showing somewhat a very positive movement for a good portion of the day. Like afternoon, it was basically moving up afternoon. You can see in the day it was moving down. DI again. Basically half and half on DI, but you see in the day it was moving it was going down again. And Bollinger Band basically showing a somewhat steady downward trend for most of the day on Bollinger Band, and you can see that recovery here at the end of the day, and then right at the end of the day it was dropping again. So a very, very, very tricky trade, but you still could have gotten out of the trade during the daytime by monitoring, obviously. Next trade is FE, First Energy Corporation. It tripped at 2:05:03 p.m. at a price of $30.20. It was a short sell. It closed at $30.22, so it closed above its tripping price, but it was down from previous close 1.37%. Tripped at 2:05, so tripped roughly here. And it was down just a bit there. You see it made a bit of recovery, but look, it dropped at the end of the day. It dropped actually fairly good. So we're talking almost a good hour here, but it was down below its stripping price, so I consider that a positive trade. Check to see what the analysis will show. OBV somewhat showing it moving downwards. You can see end of day though it was recovering, but the price was showing that also. MACD actually showing a good portion of the day it was moving down. End of day it was making recovery. DI showing the same thing. A good portion of the day it was moving down and making a recovery at the end of the day. And Bollinger Band just basically showing a steady decline. And again, that end of the day it was making a recovery at the end of the day, but for the most part, that period of time just before the end of the day where it was dropping, it dropped down fairly good below the tripping price, so that would have been a positive trade. Next trade is BX, the Blackstone Group. It tripped at 2:25:28 p.m. It tripped as a short sell, but it actually closed at 62.85, so it closed up. It was up 0.74%, so it actually closed up a good amount. You can see in the day it was recovering. 225. See, look, it tripped around that time, and then it was basically moving upwards after that. So it's not even showing a potential buy. OBV showing the same thing, sideways, and end of day recovering. MACD showing that a good portion of the day it was moving down, but again this increased in the day. It was making a fairly good recovery in the day. DI showing the same thing. And Bollinger Band, yeah, end of the day making it again. That's just a negative trade or negative buy. Could not make anything on it itself. BLNK. Link Charging Company, 2:50 p.m. it tripped at a price of $28.19. It was a short sell. It closed at $28.84, and it was 6.07% above, so it was up a good amount. So that's a positive trade. And the analysis of it is showing will be somewhat sideways, and then you can see early, well, basically in the middle, like at midday to the end of the day, it was moving upwards. MACD showing the same thing, actually making a reversal at the end of the day, but during the mid-afternoon it was making that big recovery. DI showing it actually was still above, moving positive at the end of the day, and very heavily positive. Bollinger Band sideways, and then that rise at the end of the day, and then basically, stabilizing, moving sideways. So moving sideways for most of the day, made that jump at the middle of the day, and then started moving sideways again. So, in general, the stock is a good stock because all the things are showing somewhat positive. Next trade is DXC. That's DXC Technology. Tripped at 3:10 p.m. at a price of $24.87. It was a short sell. It closed at $24.85. It was actually up over the day, over the previous close, so it actually was moving up. So right at the end of the day, it dropped below its stripping price. So just because of the fact that at the end of the day you could have gotten out, to me that's positive. Just because of the fact that at the end of the day, but again, tripped roughly near, well, last hour of the day, and it wasn't heavily moving up at the end of the day, so it wasn't like strongly positive. OBV is actually showing it moving downwards, moving sideways at the end of the day. MACD showing that it was making a recovery at the end of the day, so that's probably why we're catching it just above it. So MACD showing it somewhat moving down a good portion of the day, like pretty much the whole period of time it was monitored. It was moving down. DI actually showing different. DI showing it moving more positive than negative, but you can see at the end of the day it was moving negative again. Bollinger Band, it came up at the end of the day, it was starting to move down, so the stock was moving down, so the fact that it didn't move down heavily at the end of the day, could have still made a profit or a positive trade, and it looks like the trade itself, end of day wise, was moving down, so I would say that's at least a concrete, negative result, even though it wasn't high negative, it was still positive. Interesting day. We actually only had 6 out of 10 trades, so technically that's 60%. trade, still above 50%, but there was a good portion of stocks that were questionable, and yesterday was a bit of a strange day. It was somewhat, negative, moving downwards by the market analysis and market indications, so just peculiar in that fashion. It does give me some more information to maybe make some more modifications to the evaluation processing to maybe try to stream out some of these negative ones. But again, it's a very, very difficult thing to do because of the fact that the markets are very, as I say, volatile, and it's not always 100% to know that it may be moving in a direction that maybe indication-wise is showing it. So it's somewhat a play game that you can see how close you can get, without making it ineffective, not making it ineffective, but potentially you still may see negative trades, which is what we saw today. So it's just one of those days, and it comes down to the fact that while I want the system to be as efficient as possible, the stock trading itself is just not a concrete, activity to make a final conclusion based on, let's say, observations, because again, this particular facility is, you always hear the term chaotic, and that means the aspect of the price. It can just move up and down quite heavily. You actually see that in indications and the price itself, where you can see it jump up, a huge amount just for, whatever reason, and the same result, you can see it jump down. And jumping down, you see that quite a bit. The stock moves easily downwards as opposed to moving easily upwards. You see a stock that moves down very, very easily downwards, and it's just a result that you get these kind of days. But I will still be evaluating. I evaluate all my outcomes to make determinations of what's going on, to see if I can actually make it a bit more efficient, which is my goal for my clients, is to make sure that they get the best that they can get and go that way. And hopefully the system in the end will be beneficial and positive. It is for me. It's been very positive for me. So I'm happy, and I'm hoping that people who will purchase the system will get obviously the same results. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.